Hi y'all, we're visiting Harry's Grill on the north end of Anna Maria Island today. Anna Maria is located on Tampa Bay and the Gulf of Mexico in Florida. We're going to be visiting with Mr. and Mrs. Mark and Jan Labriola, who are the owners of Harry's. We're going to be hearing their incredible story of how they went from living in an RV and barely making ends meet with no income to becoming, 10 years later, they are the owners of a very successful restaurant in a tourist area, and how their faith led the way. Mark and Jan, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. You guys have such an amazing story with what you guys have accomplished here at Harry's. There's such a history here. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from? You're a very Italian family, right?
That's correct. Yes, I was raised in Passaic, New Jersey. Had an early start in life with two major things that were important to me. One was music. My father owned a music studio, and I learned how to play accordion when I was 5. And then my grandmother, who lived in the same house, had a big old kitchen in the basement. And so every day after school, I'd run down there and we would spend time cooking with grandma. So when you get out on your own as a young person, you want to, you remember all those foods you ate growing up. And so I'd always call home and say, hey, how did grandma make this? So I learned how to cook early because I couldn't go out and buy the foods that I was wanting to eat. And at the same time, also, I had a real passion for guitar and singing and songwriting. And so early on, I had a situation where I was able to be introduced to a couple of guys that I really admired in the music business. And one day they asked me to come and play in between their sets. And so I was amazed that they let me do that. So I did. I played in between their sets and really eventually got into the music business full time. Well, in the music business full time, I would gig usually 3-4 days a week. But if I wasn't gigging, fortunately, I worked at clubs that had restaurants, and the owners would always give me a job working in the back. So if I wasn't playing music on the stage, I was cooking food in the kitchen. Yeah. And so basically, I was able to incorporate my early upbringing into my careers as a young man growing up in my 20s.
Was that your entire career? For how long was that?
Oh my goodness. So I would say most of my guitar playing and cooking career, the guitar playing and singing was for about 9-10 years professionally. Then I wanted to have a family, and so I went full time into cooking a little bit. I started working at a yacht harbor in Plantation Key, and it was one of these really a full gourmet kitchen. And guys that would cook there would be at these, Four Seasons. I mean, I was really exposed to some of the finest cooking that you could probably, experience. But my job was I was a salad chef. And so I would come in early in the morning and I'd prepare a cold buffet for a lunchtime. And I was doing, cutting roses out of tomatoes and making, little birds out of turnips and all this kind of stuff, and I learned how the Four Seasons people, made salads or whatever. So I had a lot of early grooming.
Now, Jan, your background is a little bit different than Mark. So Mark grew up in New Jersey. You're a little closer to me. You grew up down in Mississippi.
Southern girls. That's
right.
When I was a kid, I was born in Tupelo, Mississippi, near Elvis Presley, right down the road.
Elvis and biscuits.
That's right. And we moved to Pascagoula, Mississippi on the coast. My dad had a shrimp boat, and the name of the boat was the Jan Can. So I have a boat named after me.
Oh.
So he would go fishing, all weekend and come home and have all this beautiful, catch of crabs and all these really cool things coming out of the net. It was great going down there and see what he would bring in. Of course, my mom, it was all Southern food.
Absolutely.
And then summer times, though, I would go to my grandmother's house, Mom Lily, in Mississippi, and back in Tillatobi, Mississippi.
Now we've got a picture of Mama Lily.
She's on the wall.
Over on the wall.
And my mom would literally drop me off the day after school got out for the summer. And I would stay all summer long until the day that school started, the day before it was. And I would get there late at night, and I couldn't wait to wake up the next day because I could look out my window, and the pasture was there, and there would be my horse that I had waited all year long to ride. But my mama would make me biscuits at midnight if I wanted them. It was just so good. She had Sunday after church, she had chicken going.
Right. I love that you guys both have that background of spending so much time with your grandparents.
Yeah.
I mean,
and food. Yeah.
Yeah, food and grandparents.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your early career, Jan?
So basically, I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. A coupon clipper. I had my own coupon club, and then later on, I found a magazine at a doctor's office, and it was about selling lingerie. And so I thought, well, that sounds good. So I wrote and got my little kit to sell my lingerie. And that turned into a 15-year career of modeling and traveling around the world with, with lingerie modeling instead. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that was crazy. It was great. And then after that, I became a mortgage broker.
That's totally like completely different end of the spectrum.
That's right. Well, what happened was I went down the tubes because the business went to, and the lingerie sales, Victoria's Secret came into the picture. So all of a sudden, Target was coming on board, and you couldn't really, women had more access to lingerie than they did way back then. So
more than back in the catalog days.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the market changed.
Yeah, the market changed. So it kind of slowed down. So I had bills, and I'm like, how am I going to save my house? So I went to a mortgage broker to get a loan and wound up getting a job and doing my own loan to save my house.
Well, there you go.
I know. So I just did my own home loan, and I started my mortgage business, and
completely changed your life.
It was nutty.
Now, how did you guys get together, and when did this happen?
Okay, so I'll pick up where I left off. So after leaving the kitchen, that 1 year I worked there, I had to get a normal job. So I worked in sales for the most part for 20 years, and I was out of a job. And my brother was a carpenter, and he gave me a part-time job. And he taught me how to do simple things like make shelves and window sills. Well, I started working for a company doing that trim work. It's called Centex Homes, and they were our contractor, and I would go in and do these little trim jobs. And in 1996, they hired me as a warranty manager. Well, after a short period of time, I became the department manager, and I had some safety training through my brother. And so next thing you know, they made me the safety manager. Well, lo and behold, after 7 years in Denver as a safety manager and construction manager, I did both jobs. The corporate headquarters in Dallas had need for a national safety director. And I got the job as Centex Homes National Division National Safety Director. So now I'm in Dallas, moved there in 2005. And unfortunately went through a terrible divorce in 2009. And in 2009, you get these, junk mails all the time from this online dating stuff. And I was just ignored it. Now, I'm a single guy all of a sudden, and I thought, well, I could do this. So let me see. And I wanted to find the right person.
Right.
So I put my complete bio on paper, every word, everything about me that's miserable. I wanted to make sure that I was fully transparent in who I was.
Right.
Full disclosure. I figured there's got to be a fish out there
that will take this bait.
because I am who I am, and I don't want to kid anybody. So I put my bio online, and basically I put it out there. Next thing you know, I run into Jan because she does this thing called the wink. And she saw my bio, and saw my picture, and next thing I know, I'm seeing this beautiful girls winking at me.
Oh my goodness.
So my side of the story is a little different than that.
Okay.
So I think he winked at me first. We'll have to go back and look, but I think he winked at me first. And so I thought, well, this looks good. So I check him out, on the picture. And he had his grandbaby with him, and in a beautiful kitchen, his beautiful smile with what looked like a pot of pasta boiling. Like, I'm thinking, this is going to be my guy here because I love pasta. And he's cooking in the kitchen, and a glass of wine in the background. I'm thinking, this really looks good so far. So we connected that night, and
we chatted online. I didn't meet her until a month after this, just almost about 3 weeks after this event. And it was like, we didn't even know each other. I mean, it's just all it was texting back and forth and phone calls and whatnot. And I was a little deceptive because online, you got to disclose your age. And to be quite honest, I was looking.
Wait, Mark. You said you were totally transparent. Now where are we going here?
Well, that's the thing. It's like the only thing I didn't wasn't completely transparent was my age, because I looked 10 years younger than I really was. And when I had my age at what it was. I can't remember what it was now.
56.
But whatever. I get these women winking at me
Yeah.
like my grandmother. And I'm going like, no.
You said you were 50. You said you were 50, but you were 56.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah.
So just 6 years.
But I did get transferred.
Fudge it a little bit.
But the first phone call, the first time we actually talked, I said, look, before we go any further, I got to tell you the honest truth. I am not 50. I'm 56. You know?
I just love that you guys are a true, an actual Match.com.
We are
Success
it.
story.
Yeah, we are it. Yeah. This is the funniest
Yeah.
part, though. So my family reunion was coming up, and I just don't even think, like, I go back and look, did I really do that? Because I think things are normal, and a lot of people think they're abnormal, but I see things that I do as very normal. So I just hauled off and invited him to my family reunion. We only know, and I'm talking, I got a Southern family.
Wait, this is when you hadn't even actually met
we
him.
met one time.
You met one time.
Yes.
And then you take him to the family reunion.
That's right. On a road trip.
You were brave.
I thought it was normal, and my family's like, "Oh my gosh, she's coming
What
with
is
she's
she
coming with
doing?
the guy." And of course, they know I'm not normal, but that I think I'm normal. They already know this. The secret's out of the bag.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So they're all waiting, and the next thing you know, they're all over him. Like they can't stop. I'm like over in the corner, like chopped liver, and they're all talking to him. They love him. He's telling stories.
The thing is the reason why they love me because my son was on American Idol
Uh.
in 2009, and I was there with him, and I told them that story, and they were on the edge of their seat because they're all Idol fans. Right, so now I had the.
So now you were a celebrity.
I was a celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, because I knew what went on with Simon. I knew how they all did the production. So they were like, "going, I can't believe you know." So basically, she was all like, "Why is my family just like?"
I know.
hovering over him?
I'm
So
used
her
to it
mouth
though.
open,
They
you know?
do that to me a lot. But yeah, so then they after they get through with them, then my Uncle Danny comes in the room, and I'm thinking, you know, because they could tell we were serious, you know. And my Uncle Danny, you know, he comes in and he goes, "I need to talk," and I'm thinking, this is when he's going to really remark out and make sure he's good for me.
Out to the front
And he
porch.
sits us down and he starts talking and he goes, "Mark, I just need to know. Do you know what you're getting into?" And so, like, basically, he's making sure that this guy
Making sure Mark is good.
knows what he's getting into
With you.
Yeah, and
He's protecting Mark.
yeah, he was protecting Mark. Yeah, and so
and they're still
yeah.
doing it.
and they're still protecting Mark. Yeah, they're still protecting.
Oh,
Mark.
that's
So,
great.
yeah, it was
That is
funny.
so great. And then obviously you guys got married.
So
Yeah.
so what happened is we got engaged, and then a year later we got married. And at that point, we had got married at a time. And this is an interesting part of the story. During this time, this initial part of our relationship, everything started changing. My company decided that they couldn't pay a national safety director 6 figures. So they decided to cut me. This is back after the 2008 crash.
Uh-huh.
So basically, they were cutting people loose left and right. So I was one of the last to go, which was kind of fortunate. But still, here was in 2009, 2010 now, I'm out of a job. And so we ended up getting together. And, you know, her business at the same time also suffering dramatically.
Right, with mortgages, obviously,
right?
yeah.
Because all these big
Yeah.
banks that
Down
she used
the
to working with
Right.
are basically closing. I had bought 10 acres of land in a small town in mid-Florida named Arcadia. And so we had really gotten to the point where now I was out of a job. She was getting so frustrated with her business. I mean, she's pulling her hair out. I said, look, well, I'm going to sell everything. We'll buy an RV. We'll move to our 10 acres. And we'll start doing this, you know, real estate thing in Florida.
In Florida.
Because we felt, I knew for a fact that Florida, if any place would bounce back quickly after the crash, it would be Florida.
Here, right.
Because Florida always has that resiliency. And so she agreed. I mean, God bless her. I mean, she took my ideas. And so we bought this 38-foot RV. And basically,
we called it Harvey the RV.
Harvey the RV. And we packed it with everything we had a U-Haul, both our cars, and drove and parked.
And we had a bulldog and a cat,
two cats,
two cats.
a Kawadi Monday, and 3 raccoons.
That's right.
And we drive down to our 10 acres and set up shop.
In your RV.
In the RV, right. And so that started. And so then we were there for about a year, you know, and that's we got married December of 2012.
So you guys got married in kind of in a dire straits situation.
Yes.
It wasn't.
Yes.
Right.
You guys weren't on top of the world when you got married.
we were busted.
We were
Yeah.
busted. We
Yeah.
were in a bad. I mean, Jan likes saying this that we had gotten so broke at this point because we had gone through all the savings and the opportunity just wasn't.
And
coming our
nothing
way.
was happening.
Nothing was happening. We knocked on we knocked on as many doors as you can knock on. We had help with realtors, and we did everything under the sun that we were trained to do, and we weren't getting anywhere. So we were getting down the point. We were getting food bank food, basically cans that said meat on them,
In big block
in
letters.
big block
Oh,
letters,
wow.
taking jobs cleaning toilets, and then just little maintenance things here and there. I mean, we were just doing whatever we could to try and get by.
And how did you guys do with your faith during that?
Well, we did every morning. We would wake up, and I mean, we had this cute little routine. We'd wake up in the morning and have our coffee and do our devotions, and then do the best to make some sort of a business plan. But it was weird because, like, he had his business and I had my business, and you always had your routine with your business. But this was weird because we really didn't have a business, but we were so programmed to doing something every day, and we knew that it wasn't just going to happen. So we just were trying to just stay in some sort of a routine. Yeah, groove. Right. And so he would make plans. Like, he would make his list, I would make my list. He was writing a book, and that's a whole nother story during all of it. And we would just do the best we could and just pray. And
it was always a meditative time. We just meditate on, the Lord would give us inspiration. I mean, in the morning, I appreciated Jan, loved reading out loud, and she basically every day we'd have a good inspirational book.
Right.
Heaven's Real, you're going to like it. I mean, that's one of the books we read, and a few others that basically were inspirational stories that the Lord gave us to basically keep you going, spirits up, keep our hope up, to know that He's with us
through this trial.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's sad for me in some ways because I didn't really take full advantage of that opportunity just to sit and chill and enjoy this 10 acres of beautiful land and right on a river to enjoy it.
Because I was always thinking, you're worried and thinking ahead.
Yeah, right. I gotta make a living.
Yeah, and you're so used
and you're not in the present.
Right, not in the present.
Yeah, and you're so used to the world telling you that you got to get up and you feel like you fight the thing. I'm a lazy bum because I'm not out there doing something.
Right.
But there really are times in your life, I think, from this experience that he just wanted, the challenge was us to do nothing and wait and see what he had in store for us. Yeah. And that's really hard to do. Very hard to do.
Be still and know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that was the hardest, it was the hardest job I've ever had, just sitting around for a year and a half in an RV.
Be still and know that I'm God. That was the key verse that kept me just being positive, knowing that when the right opportunity, God wanted me to be where I was when I was there.
Right.
And that He would lead us. And I had to come to that conclusion. And it took some real spiritual development. I got to say this I get one story that's worth telling from a spiritual standpoint. There's two of them. This one here in particular was we had to get up every morning, and she was so faithful to honor me because I always did daily devotions with my family. And so now I got a new family, and we're doing our daily devotions. We're praying. We're and asking God for deliverance and for giving us a path to where we're supposed to go. And always meditating on He wants to be at peace. Well, got to the point where now the bank was dry. Bank account was dry. All the minimum payments I was making on credit card payments couldn't be made anymore.
Oh, wow.
The payment we were making on the land wasn't to be made. And so I start what she calls.
Because did you guys have any income at this time?
None at this time. None.
He didn't even have disability at this point.
No, I had nothing.
Wow.
And so, because we had gone through, I had sold my house in Dallas, so we had gone through all of our savings. And so.
Oh, and let me just add, the commode in the RV was broken. Like, things got broken and you can't
even fix them.
You can't fix
them.
So
we have a green chair story.
Man.
I mean, it's we really had to camp.
It got bad. Yeah. So I remember this one time that I was what she calls losing a wheel. And my stress level was like, I finally just popped. And she is so sensitive. She sensed my radical going out of my mind spirit. She goes, "What's all this Jesus stuff you're telling me? You're telling me all about trusting God, and now look at you." And she goes, "I'm going to go to Walmart and get a job." And so she walks out. So then I had this come to Jesus meeting at this moment. Literally come to Jesus. Okay. And he told me, he says, "Look, are you going to trust me or not?" And the thing is you go through these things, and all your life, which is true for me, I've always tried to change my circumstances to make my situation better, okay? Rather than trusting God, though I say I'm trusting God. Right. And now I am influencing this dear woman in my life that I really want to have a spiritual impact on. And I am causing her to turn her back on God and go get a job at Walmart. Yeah. So she came back, and I told her that I had this come to Jesus meeting, and that she was right, and that I just need to make a decision. When Jesus says in His Word, take no thought for your life, He means take no thought for your life. And it says, if he says, be anxious for nothing, then it's my job to basically cool my jets and take no thought and not be anxious. And,
There you
then,
go.
and tell the devil to get out, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest, revelations I had, like epiphanies, right? Which then that was like probably the beginning of the middle of the second year of us being in the woods. And then one of the other next spiritual revelations was walking back from the woods. God has put the story in my head about
with all the critters walking around and everything,
and all the trees, and so I got home and I started writing this book that God had put in my head. So I write this story, and then I get to the end, and I'm thinking, well, I got to have her read it out loud to see if there's any words too big that might not be good for kids to read.
Because it's a children's book.
It's a children's book,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, honey, I've written this book. Here's the band. Could you please read this for me, and so I can hear what it sounds reading it out loud?
And I was like sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, like, it's just me and him there. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to tell him honest,
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to tell my husband that, because I'm thinking it's probably going to suck, because my standards are really high. And I'm like I'm sitting there, I'm struggling. What am I going to tell him? Because there's no distraction.
And you're thinking, how does he write a children's book?
Exactly.
Really?
He's staring at me, and I'm like going, oh my gosh.
So I
read it, and I started reading it, and I got through page, 6 or 7, and I'm literally like, I'm just bawling. I'm like, I couldn't even talk. I was like,
it is
absolutely.
It's called The Little Pine Tree, right?
Yeah,
The
Little Pine Tree, and it is. Look it up. You guys, they can buy it online.
It's on Amazon.
On Amazon, yeah, on Amazon.
So, my brother Keith, who's passed away since then, he had a friend he recommended. Her name's Virginia. That's a published children's book writer, and so he said, "Why don't you send it to Virginia and see what she thinks?" Well, I sent it to Virginia. She calls me a couple days later and says, "Mark, had the same experience as Jan did. Started crying midstream."
It's a very unique story.
It's got a big hook to it.
It does. It really surprises you.
And she said, "Would you mind if I send it to my publisher?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't mind." Sure enough, the day before Thanksgiving, we get a call from the president of the publishing company saying, "We love your book. We want to publish it." So that was like, confirmation that, that's what God wanted me to do. So finally, at this point, we were really, it was kind of exciting to have the book published and all, but, still no income, right? and this is all good and well and good. And so she had gotten a job working at a coffee shop in Bradenton Beach. Mm-hmm. And so what we would
which is at the other end of Anna Maria Island from here.
Right?
Yes.
So we'd come down and basically we had our animals that we would let stay at the RV. We would drive down like on a Friday. We would I would bring her to work. She'd work Friday and then Saturday. Then essentially I'd come back and leave her there with a friend, Amanda, so I could tend to the animals and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Right. Then come back and get her another day. So we would still have that little party.
Yeah, because Arcade is what, about an hour?
An hour 15 minutes for more.
It's a trip.
So anyway, so what had happened through the course of time, I had submitted papers to Social Security for disability because I had a hip that was bad, it needed to be replaced, and I couldn't do my safety thing anymore. So I had submitted that, and then since we were down to the end of our rope, we had no money. The only asset we had was the land. So we put the land up for sale. That's all we could do. And that's where it sat.
But at this point, we started feeling better because at least I had little commode cleaning jobs and working at the back alley, and he was doing his thing, and we were meeting. We started to meet people and networking, and it just seemed like things were getting a little bit better, even though we were still really destitute. And another thing that happened was in Florida, on your land, if you live in an RV, if you don't build a house on your own land, you get run off your land. So I don't have gas money to put in the RV. And we are supposed to drive the RV off. And even if we had got $20 to put gas in the RV, what are we going to park it on the side of the road? We literally are looking at being homeless, and we have some land. It was just bizarre.
Yeah,
so
that is.
I came here. The long story short was, this is what we call our, the week that the Lord made the earth and Genesis, the whole thing. So basically, I was working. My boss came to me one day and she says, "I want to talk to you." She brought me to this place called Feeling Swell on the north end of the island. And we sat at a table and we talked, and she says, "I want to sell my place to you." And I'm like going, "Oh my gosh." but I don't have any money.
Right.
And she goes,
Yeah.
well, it's only, I don't know, 60,000.
It was 160.
160,000. But if you could find this much money, then you can have it. As sweet as that opportunity was,
You guys were broke.
we were broke, and we went to his sister for the seed money, and she prayed about it and didn't feel led to give it to us.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't. So we passed on that opportunity.
Okay. Let me say, the way this worked is kind of the miracle part of it is that she's here getting offered the business. When I get back, the real estate agent that we listed our land with is sitting on my steps of the RV.
And we hadn't had anyone look at it for a long time.
Nobody looked at it. Nobody looked at it.
Right.
It was
It's
just
10
listed.
acres of land out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
With 15 other parcels for sale. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right? And so we're sitting, and so he goes, I got some people who want to buy your land. They want to pay cash, but they got to close by Tuesday. Can you sell it? But cash. And I said, well, does the Pope wear a hat? Anyway, he says, but we got to negotiate now because I'm leaving town and we're going to get the contract, finalized tonight. That's on a Friday. Okay. Monday, I'm getting up. I'm getting ready to head back to get her from Anna Maria, from Bradenton, where she's staying with her friend on Holmes Beach. And the phone rings, and it's Social Security. And I'm going, man, I heard from you since I submitted those papers months ago. They said, well, you need to sign some papers. So I go down there, wait in line. They call me up. I'm at this glass window. The guy says, you got to sign here, sign there. I said, okay. And it's been a year since I filed. I go, what's this for? He said, well, you're going to get it, and it's going to be retroactive. You're going to get X amount of dollars, and then you're going to have a monthly payment from now forever for X amount of dollars. And it was like,
So all of a sudden, you guys have, no
went-
money for the longest time
Right.
to all this happening in the same week.
Right.
Within the
Couple
same
days.
3 days.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was just in 1 week, all these things happened. So that meant that we were going to get our RV, put gas money in it, drive it to Buttonwood, which is right. We were going to move to the island and and so we made this, we released our wildlife and took the dog and the cats
That's just
So
too
you-
cool.
yeah,
loaded up the kids and headed to Beverly. It was
So
like,
that-
Right?
Beverly, yeah.
Right, that's what the Beverly Hills is. So the Buttonwood Trailer Park is just off of Cortez. And so we parked there in like July of 2013. And then with friends, we got to network around here, and there was down the road here, there was a duplex where one side was becoming vacant. And we heard about that.
From my friend Rennie, because
Yeah.
I lived in one side of it. That was one of my friends, and she goes, "Well, there's a place for rent right here next to me, my dude." And I'm just thinking, I can't believe I'm actually going to have a bathtub because I've only had shower pans
And
for-
a working toilet.
Exactly. I can say goodbye. It was so funny. And she's like, "But yeah, you can." And I'm thinking, I can't believe we're going to be able to rent a place on the north end of Anna Maria Island and be able to pay the rent and still have money to go to the Rod and Roll Pier and get a pitcher of beer if we want it. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is great.
That's
Yeah.
just.
So that got us here. So that's basically.
So
how
then,
that was.
obviously, so you guys, with all that, bought Feeling Swell.
So no, that's not.
No, it wasn't
that
Feeling Swell.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, the name changed again.
To Harry's.
So-
It was
so-
Harry's.
Yeah, so we were.
So it was
basically-
Harry's when you guys bought it.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were there for August of 2013, and then through the course of the.
And I was
rest of-
working at the back
and you were
alley.
Working at the back alley, and so during the course of that next year, we noticed that Feeling Swell, the awning was yellow, got changed to orange, and old Harry's Grill. So we thought, wow, the business got sold and it's changed. So we would drive every now back and forth, and we'd always look inside, and it was always empty. And we thought, my gosh, it's like, that's so sad that,
Yeah, we kept noticing it. So my little thing was, every time you see something that might be an opportunity, just write it down on a piece of paper. But the thing is, if you write it on the piece of paper, you have to do it. That's my rule for myself. So I'm always hedging. Should I write it down? Because am I really going to want to call and ask later on? But I went ahead and wrote Harry's down there on my list. And every time I'd get to my list the next Monday, I would go, I don't really want to do that. The fear of failure, like I don't want to call and ask. We have money, but we don't have money. And
Right.
I don't restaurant, like what are we gonna?
No, I do want to sell your business. It looks like it's really
Yeah,
not doing
yeah.
well.
You guys are not busy at all.
Finally, I said,
Yeah.
I woke up and I said, I'm getting this off the list. It's going to be the first thing I'm
Just
going to do.
make the
I'm just
call.
going to make a call, and that way I can check it off the list. And I
And it's
make
done.
the call. The phone rings here at Harry's. The owner is never here. As it turns out, I hear later on that this backstory is the owner is never here. Her name is Michelle. She answered the phone that day, stunned me, and I go, well, I just wanted, my name is Jan, and I live down the street, and I see your place, and I was just wondering if you ever want to sell your place, because it wasn't for sale. If you ever want to sell your place, just let me know. And she goes, I was just thinking and just praying yesterday to the Lord to bring me the right buyer. And I go, oh my goodness. So I literally threw clothes on. I ran down here and met her. Within 1 hour, I was sitting at the patio table with her. And me and her were sitting there telling a deal. And she's telling me her story, which her husband lives in Kansas and she wants to be with him. And she's stuck with this restaurant that's not really doing well. She can't handle it. And I'm telling her we really want a business and we've won an opportunity. And we work really hard and I promise I'll take care of your people. But the caveat is, Michelle, I don't have any money. And she didn't even blink an eye. She's like, well, that's not a problem. I'll talk to my husband. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll talk to mine too. And
Gotcha.
So I called a sister. Yeah. His sister prayed and she says, I feel good about
this. This time she felt good about
That's
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And she gave us the money, the seed money, and we took ownership.
So you guys actually took ownership. So that was 2014, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So it's been almost 10 years here at Harry's.
That's right. And it's been a journey. I mean, you could do a whole other video on the journey of Harry's Grill.
Okay, so you guys tell us about how y'all came up with Harry's Hallelujah Brunch, because there are a lot of really great things to love about Harry's, but I have to say my very favorite thing is what happens here on Sunday mornings. So how did you guys come up with that?
When I lived in Dallas, there was a blues club that wasn't far from me called the House of Blues. And on Sundays, they had what was called a gospel brunch, House of Blues gospel brunch. And they would fly in these, high-powered gospel singers, and they'd put on this lavish, Eggs Benedict buffet. And you'd pay $50, $60 to come and enjoy this show. So when we acquired Harry's, we had made some friends. Vinny, who owned Vinny's Italian market on Pine. He's since moved to Holmes Beach, but we lived right close by, so we would see him, and he was a Assemblies of God preacher for 20 years, but he decided to get out of the church business and went into the Italian food business. So he was there. He had a couple of friends named Nan and John, and Nan and John were also business owners, and they were friends. So one Saturday evening, we were here, and I had met them for the first time as friends of Vinny, and we were all talking, and we were talking about, and I shared my vision with them. I said, you know what? I'd really love, I said, there was this place in Dallas, House of Blues, they had this gospel brunch. It'd be so cool if I could do a gospel brunch here. And they said, well, that's a great idea. Now, Nan is one of these people that has got more energy than the Energizer Bunny. And she goes, oh, yeah, we could do that. Yeah. I said, well, look, I just bought a restaurant, and there are so many things that I'm learning about how to run a restaurant. To put another thing on my plate and have a Hallelujah brunch right now might be a little early. This is like 4 months after we got the place. And she goes, oh, we can help. That's not a problem. I said, well, what would we call it? And we came over. I said, well, what about Harry's Hallelujah Brunch? He's like, that sounds great. Well, I get home that night. She's already gone on banners.com and she emails me a copy of the banner. The logo, you probably might have taken a picture of the sign we have out there.
Right. So
we made a banner. We hung it here. This place didn't look like this at all. But they're going, okay. Well, I called her up. I said, well, looks like we're all set. So
now what?
Now what? So we have a banner. So
like the next day I came in, because I used to prep here during those days, and I came in and all these little table tents were all over and I'm like, what's Hallelujah Brunch? Like, I didn't even know. I mean,
just advertising it, you guys.
I didn't even know. Like, I'm like, what does this mean? And what are we
doing?
We're still trying to get control of the restaurant.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh.
Vinny would preach because he had that thing. So he would be the preacher. Next thing you know, I had somebody that volunteered to sing and play. And so now we have music. So within a few weeks, we had the full thing going with music. And then Jan came in and goes, that breakfast stinks. We got to do fresh breakfast.
It was like buffet.
Well, that's the one thing that I will say about this. It's incredible. I mean, you think, oh, well, it's a little, they're going to give you like a honey bun and a wrapper and a cup of coffee. No, you guys. I mean, this breakfast they do is amazing. Yes, it is. Yeah, pancakes with or without blueberries. Yeah, I mean, eggs how you want it. Yeah. Biscuits and gravy. I mean, and here's the really cool thing about it, you guys. They'll have sometimes especially during season, over 120 people here.
Yeah, 133 this year.
133 was the max this season. Mm-hmm. You
Isn't
guys,
that something?
they don't charge anybody that comes here to eat
No.
for Hallelujah Brunch on Sundays.
It's a free breakfast, and doesn't matter. My tagline is "Come as you are, leave a little better."
That to me was, God, all that time that you guys spent in that RV going, God, what are you waiting for?
Right?
What are we waiting for?
Right.
Well,
this whole thing, if you boil it all down, and if you take us back to that RV when you were sitting there going, what is going to happen? What is it going to be? Like, we
What's
just
your
like,
plan?
we can't imagine what it could be because we're completely destitute almost. And then you look and you think about how quickly it happened, like literally in 1 week. He just goes, he waved.
you can't make it up.
He just said, okay, we're done. I'm fixing it. You're over. We're over with it, and you've had your trials and tribulations for now, and so now you can have your. And he sent us over here, and it was literally coming across that bridge after we knew we were leaving that land and that place. It was like, thank you, Jesus. It feels so good. It's like,
I wouldn't have asked for this if you paid me.
no, we wouldn't have. We don't have restaurant experience.
Well,
Other than cooking.
so that's the cool thing too, is you guys both have such a background, what we talked about earlier with your grandmas and the cooking when you were younger.
Right.
And then you guys buy a restaurant, but you don't have restaurant experience.
Right. Oh no! You think owning a restaurant is just about cooking? It is not.
Well,
There's so much to this.
A funny thing is, when I was, I learned to cook early because I love cooking my family favorites, right? And so I would always have house guests, and I'd cook them my family favorite meal. They go, Mark, you have to own a restaurant. It's like, when am I ever going to own a restaurant? And God knows what our, God prepares us for the thing that He gives us the desires for. And the thing is, God says, the Lord says that that He will give you the desires of your heart. But I think it's not just that you have a desire and He makes it happen. He actually gives you, if you seek God first, He will give you the desires of your heart, and He will create the desire that's in you, and then eventually bring it to fruition. And it's not about getting there that's the important. It's not about being there that's the important thing. It's the getting there.
The journey.
And the journey. This is a work of love that's taken the better part of 8 years. The last couple of years we didn't do much, but 8 years of change.
So when you guys took it over, though, it was barely making ends meet.
It wasn't
making ends meet.
So
you guys took on a completely, a losing business in a field that you didn't have any experience in, and you guys have turned it around, and it's very successful now. I mean,
if we had known that, we never would have done it. I would have been so scared to do it. I wouldn't have done it. But we thought it was amazing. We were just like, it's a restaurant. Let's do it. We were so, he kept the blinders on. He did
what it would turn into, right?
Thank goodness, because
in the early days, you guys were here
all the time.
You guys did all the stuff.
Well, he gave us a place just 3 blocks away, so we could.
We landed there when we first got on the island, and then this place was just right here. So literally, who can imagine owning a restaurant 3 blocks from their house? Like you have to be that close to your restaurant.
Yeah, because
he thought all that out.
You have to be here.
He thought all that out. He knew all of that, and now we don't live on the island. We live off the island. But for me, it's like I have this beautiful place for wildlife. And it's just like we got everything. There's not anything that we wanted that we can say we didn't get, including family. Like now we live on the island. And our restaurant, our employees are our family. The people at Brunch are like our family. So even though our families are in Mississippi or Colorado, we still feel like we have family here too. So we now have our own family, like which we didn't know anybody when we moved here. So it's like we got everything.
It's definitely a miracle. I mean, this place was owned by 4 different people over 7 years. This business. I mean, it's a miracle, and it shows that God is more powerful than you can ever imagine. And if you seek Him first, He will give you the desires of your heart and bring things to fruition that you never expected. And we're so happy to be here. And thank you for doing this interview.
Yes, and thank you for sharing your story. It's such a unique story of perseverance, and hopefully anybody that's watching it today, it may be motivation for some of you that are thinking there's no end to this tunnel that we're in right now.
Right.
You guys, you guys definitely show that.
Keep the faith.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll see you next time.